I'm Annette of Tastefully Thai Cooking Classes, and today we're going to make Massaman Curry. And this is the Massaman Curry paste that we use. I have also today made some from scratch out of ingredients that I got at the Asian food store. It calls for things like dried peppers, garlic, shallots, lemongrass, some cumin, some other dried spices like coriander and cloves, and it all gets, some of the things get roasted, toasted, put in there, ground up. And so today I'm going to be using one of the homemade curry pastes that I made a while back. It keeps for a long time. So if you do go to all the trouble to make your own curry paste, it's great because it keeps for a long time. Okay, so we're going to start off today like usual with coconut milk. And like we do with a lot of the curries in Thai cooking, is we're going to take that cream off of the top first, and we're going to cook that down a little bit. Some cans of coconut milk really have a lot of cream in them. This particular brand, you can see that particular brand is really, really thick coconut milk. The cream, there's lots and lots of cream on the top, and then there's very little of the clear liquid, the clear coconut juice at the bottom. And so I'm going to take as much of this cream off as I can. If you're using a coconut milk that has less cream and more of the clear liquid stuff at the bottom, just use whatever cream is on top and just start with that. And we're going to cook that down a little bit, get it thick, get those oils to separate out of there, and really help to make that coconut milk aromatic and smell really good before we add all the other ingredients to it. So this can is pretty heavy with the cream, but I've gotten most of it out of there, and there's probably about that much left. Sometimes if I'm doubling the recipe, this particular brand costs more, and so sometimes if I'm gonna double the recipe, I'll use one of these and then I'll use a cheaper brand that has less of the cream in it, just to spread my dollar a little bit farther, and it still turns out really well. If I'm using a couple cans and they're all the cheaper brand and there's a lot more of the clear liquid and less of the cream, it still turns out okay. It's just not quite as rich, not quite as thick when you get done. So what we're looking for here is we want this coconut milk to thicken up a little bit. Sometimes you'll see little trails of oil between the bubbles, which means that it's now separating. Sometimes you can see that pretty clearly, sometimes you can't. Not always sure why. Sometimes it shows up better than others, but basically you need to cook this down for a little bit. It should get really thick to where when you run your spatula through there, it doesn't close back up again quite so quickly. So I'll let you know when this arrives there so that you know what you're looking for. And coconut milk doesn't burn like regular cow's milk does. Eventually it'll get dark on the sides. Eventually it will burn. It takes quite a while though, so don't be afraid to use higher heat for this than you would like with milk or something else that would burn and scald like regular milk. Okay, this is really thickening up, and you can see it doesn't close back up quite as quickly as it was. I'm looking for those little trails of oil. I don't see those right now. But really this is thick enough. You see how long it takes for that to close back up again? This is now thick enough. And so I'm going to go ahead and add my curry paste. And this recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of of the curry paste. And again, this is the homemade stuff that I made. It's there's this this brand here is completely fine, but if you compare the two, if you compare homemade to the store-bought cans, you'll notice a huge difference, and it's definitely worth it to make your own. They keep for a long time, like I said earlier, and so going to the trouble to find the ingredients and to make your own curry paste, it is worth it. And I eventually I will also have those curry paste recipes available too. Okay, so I have stirred in that coconut or the curry paste, and now I'm going to add meat. And the recipe actually calls for beef, and I didn't have beef today, so I'm going to add pork because I already had that already cut up from another dish that I made the other day. I had leftover, so I'm going to go ahead and use pork. You could use chicken. Massaman curry in Thailand is often made with the darker meats, so with pork or with beef, water buffalo or something like that, but I'm using pork today. And I just took a pork loin and I just cut it, sliced it really thin. You want, every time you use meat in Thai food, either curry or stir fry, you want your meat to be really thin so it cooks quickly. I also added one potato that's cubed up, and I'm just going to let this meat kind of cook a little bit. Probably won't cook it quite all the way through, and then I'm going to add some more liquid and finish cooking it off and finish cooking the potatoes as we go. Okay, so this meat it's not quite done all the way through, but it's getting there. It's almost all the way done. I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of the coconut milk, which is the more liquid stuff. This can was really full of cream. So I'm going to add that extra liquid, and then I'm going to add palm sugar, and I'm going to add about a tablespoon of that. Now, palm sugar is kind of a pasty kind of a sugar, and there's several different forms that you can get it in. On my website, there's a couple pictures of palm sugar, the different ways that you can get it. It comes either like this in a jar, or it comes in a kind of like a hard disc, and you can buy it that way also. You could substitute some brown sugar if you don't have the palm sugar. I've also seen this labeled coconut sugar. But anyway, you want to put it in there and then watch it melt along the side of the wok here. Make sure that it melts good before you mix it in. If some of these ingredients are things you haven't seen before, you can go to my website, tastefullythai.net, and look at the ingredient guide. Click on the ingredient guide button, and on that ingredient guide you'll have pictures and descriptions of a lot of these ingredients. The sauces we use, the different curry pastes and things. Okay, now I'm going to add 4 cardamom pods. Now, the correct cardamom to use for this dish is this. These are Thai cardamom, and I will say that I have not yet found them here in the States. I can order them online, but in the store I can't find them. So if you can't find these, or you can't get a hold of these, Indian stores will have this type of cardamom, which could also be used. The flavor will be a little different, but that is also cardamom. Now, this is Indian cardamom. So, since I have the real thing, I'm going to put that in there. I'm also going to put in 4 bay leaves. And then I'm going to put in 2 tablespoons of tamarind paste. And this is another ingredient on the ingredient guide on my website. And it's a fruit. It's sour, so it's going to give a little bit of sourness to this curry. And I grabbed a teaspoon. It calls for 2 tablespoons, so I'm guessing here a little bit. 2 tablespoons of tamarind. That was tamarind concentrate, tamarind juice, or tamarind paste. I'm going to stir that in, and then I'm going to add some fish sauce. Fish sauce is what's going to add the saltiness that this dish needs. And so 2 tablespoons of fish sauce. And I will say this is going to get some peanuts at the end, and it calls for unsalted peanuts. And if you cannot find unsalted peanuts, or that's not what you have in your cupboard, go ahead and use the salted peanuts, but then cut down on the fish sauce just a little bit so it's not too salty. Okay, so all the ingredients except for the peanuts are all in there. So I'm going to add about 1/4 cup of peanuts to that. And I'm just going to let this sit and cook until the potatoes are done. So it's going to take a few minutes until those are done. If you notice that, just depending on the shape of your wok, the shape of the pan that you're using, sometimes this will dry out a little bit too much, and you're going to want to add a little more liquid so that those potatoes will finish. So, or if your coconut milk had been really thick, then it's going to get thick too fast. So if you need to add a little bit of water to finish up cooking those potatoes, go ahead and do that. This is about the consistency that it should be when it's finished cooking. So if I feel like, well, it's going to dry up a lot before those potatoes get done, I might add another 1/4 cup of water or something just so that those potatoes get done. As that all the extra liquid evaporates, it won't be too thick then. Okay, I think these potatoes are probably done now. Yep, potatoes are done. So I'm gonna turn off the heat, and I'm gonna pick out those cardamom pods. Now, if you're gonna let this sit for a while before you eat, then I would leave these in there. They're a little hard to find. Make sure they're not peanuts. And I would take these out just because your guests might think it's a peanut and it won't taste like one. In fact, it might be really strong. So I'm also going to take out the 4 bay leaves. Just remember how many you put in so you know how many you got to take out. So I got my cardamom pods and my bay leaves out of there. And so I'm going to serve this in a bowl. And you serve this over rice. And it's really, really yummy. Got a lot of flavor to it. The potatoes make it really hearty, and it's a great dish to serve to company.